Recording in progress.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Chaf, Maseches Gittin. So we got up. Where do we get up to? Amar Rav Chizda. So around 6 lines from the top on Chaf and Aleph. So Amar Rav Chizda, get shekasu shelo lishma. So we were discussing yesterday about we had the Mishnah with ink, and we finished starting 10 minutes ago. So we were discussing, ink over ink and how that works. The case of the Mishnah, what to use. So we say, I'll take a refill. So he said, so get shekasu shelo lishma, 6 lines in the top of Chaf and Aleph. If a get was written shelo lishma, you could add. It's fine. And then not for the sake of the divorced couple. Maybe your love komos. So then it says, you know what? It was written for another Baruch and Sarah, and now here's a Baruch and Sarah. So we'll just use this get for them from the same town. So, but it wasn't written for them. So maybe your love komos lishma. Let's say he said, okay, you know what we'll do? We'll just write over the black ink with the ink. And we'll do lishma for the sake of this couple. So let's suggest that this is the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan. The time of the braysa. So let's say a sefer was writing a sefer Torah, and he's supposed to write Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yehuda, and then what he intends to write is he thinks the next word is Yehuda, not Shem Hashem, not Yud Kei Vav Kei. So what does he do? And he forgets the Dalid from Yehuda, and he actually ends up writing Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which happened to be the right word. In other words, it was 2 mistakes, the double mistake. So Ma'avir alav kumus makdisha divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Says Rabbi Yehuda, since he didn't write Hashem's name lishma, that does not, it's not sufficient. He has to write over it lishma. You can't go ahead and it's not good. So so what do you see over here? So it's the same. Rabbi Yehuda would say in our case, go over lishma for the right couple, it's okay. And the Chachamim would say, once you write in blank ink, you can't go over and change it and make it now lishma. And perhaps that's not the identical case. Over there, the Rabbanan say it's no good at all. You can't correct it. Why? Because the requirement over there is that you should go ahead and build and write a beautiful Sefer Torah, right? And by doing it not lishma and then trying to make lishma, it doesn't work. Veleka. So even if that's let's whether or not even Hashem's name or everything. But either way, it's no good over there because you need Zekli Vaveu, and you don't have that there. But over here, when it comes to the get, there is no requirement of Zekli Vaveu, and therefore, maybe the Rabbanan would agree that if you go over Lishma, it would be okay. And Amar Rav Chizda, I can go ahead and pass all Gittin from my Lumdus. Similarly, Rav, in my time, what are you going to say? And he says he has to write. In other words, we have the halacha that basically the woman goes ahead, no one would go ahead and divorce his wife. If he had to go ahead and pay for it, fine, you want a divorce, I'll give you a divorce. So you got to pay for it now. I'm not paying it, you pay for it. So they're misaking that the woman goes ahead and pays for the sefer. Now, so if the woman is paying for the sefer, it's her get, right? So because the law has to come from him. So how could it come from him if she's the one paying for it? So I can pass all again the Torah. So the says no. The Rabbanan, right? Since the Rabbanan say that she has to go ahead, it comes from her. She has to pay for it, but the Chazal say that basically that she's makna the get. She pays for it, but she gives it over to him. He acquires the get in order to go ahead and give to her. So therefore, it's coming from her and not. It's coming from him, and therefore, it's not a kasha on all gittin.
Hey, if everything that she has really belongs to him, how does she have independent funds in order to pay for the gap?
Well, it's not everything. She has. There's other. Right. There's stuff that she does have for the next. Right. For the next Tzona Barzel. Well, for next it's on a barzel or the extras, perhaps from her Adele, right? So certain situations where it has, but she's the one who has to go ahead and come from her. We'll see later on, how that works. But the valid question. So the rather when you say Mishum Dechsi V'Nasan, asking of V'Nasan, and over here V'Nasan usually implies you give over something of value, and over here he's giving nothing of value, right? So there's no V'Nasan, there's nothing in the Davar Shava Pruta. So where it says no, Dumla Nasinas get, he maybe just means giving of a get, not giving of value. And Teida, because he sent from Eretz Yisrael, Kasal Isser Hana Kasher. If one goes ahead and writes on something which is Isser Hana, right? They write on something, let's say, I don't know, Basar B'Chalav or something from I don't know, something which is Asr B'Hana, right? So you can't. So even though you give it over, right? That you give it over a get on Isser Hana, nevertheless, it's still valid because he doesn't have to be giving her anything of value. He just has to be giving her a get, even if the value of the get itself is worth 0.0. Fine. Speaking of which, Gufa, Shach Mitam, Kasval Isser Hana, Kasher, if one goes ahead and writes on something which is Asr B'Hana, then it is kasher. So Amar Rav Ashi, Afanan Ibtanin, we also learn Allah Shal Zayis, right? You like a leaf from a tree. Leaf of a tree is valueless. So to there is Ranaz. What's the chiddush here? So Mar says no. Dilma Shani Allah Shal Zayis. The Chazi Litz Trufe. No, because if you have enough leaves, it can be worth the value of something. Animal feed or something like that. So therefore it could add up. But if you have all these things, they're Asr B'Hana. Even if I have 2,000 pounds of it, it's still worth 0. And Tanya Rabbi Yair Kasvu al Isser Hana Kasher.
Olive leaves are so tiny.
So if you have enough of them, but potentially go ahead, you want to feed an animal, right?
No, but how would you get?
So they glue them together or something. I don't know.
Smash them together.
So Kasvu Isser Hana Kasher. So one is like we just said. One writes like Isser Hana. Rabbi taught that is kosher because it doesn't have to be anything of value. So nothing like Darsha Mishmei the Rebbe. So he Darsha named Rebbe like Kalsua. They didn't praise him. So he basically wanted the halacha to be like that. So Mishmei the Rabbim. Then he went ahead and says the Chachamim say that one can write on Isser Hana, and the Kalsua. Then they praise him. They says, "Oh, this is good." So Alma Hilchasa Kavasi. We see the halacha is like Rebbe. He wanted the halacha to be like Rebbe. The people were not accepting because it was a halacha. It was like a yachin, not the Rabbim. So therefore, he basically said it was the Rabbanan, but really it was Rebbe's halacha. And Tan Rabbanan says v'kasav v'loi chakak. So it says you should write a get and not carve. You can't carve. L'meimah dechakika lav kasivi. Are you telling me that carving is not considered to be writing? I v'raminu asukasha eved shiyatza b'chsav she'al gabe tabla upinkas. If a slave goes ahead and presents basically that he has a tablet, right, or some sort of which is carved into it, right, his get shechrer and his freedom document. Yatsa the cherus. It works, even though he didn't write on this tablet; it was carved into it. It works. iPad would be something different, all right? But over here, it will be a kippah, or let's say it was sewn into something. However, we can't be sewn into something. We're sewn into something because basically what all it is thread. You can pull out the thread, and all of a sudden, all the writing on it is gone. Right, so that's not good. But if you carve into something, it works. So you see over here a get shecher, which l'chayr is similar to a get for a woman, does work. So how could you say you can't carve? So if you go ahead now, there's 2 ways of carving. For right now, we're going to introduce a 3rd way. If you go ahead and you have a flat piece of metal, okay, and then you chisel or whatever it is, you bang all around, let's say a letter O. Right, let's just say you bang all around it, and then you bang in the middle, right? So you actually technically didn't bang any of the letters. You didn't make the letters, right? You pushed everything else down on the side, which made the letters look like they're protruding, which looks like you wrote the letters. But in reality, you didn't write anything, right? You just pushed everything else down, right? So therefore, in that case, there's no such writing. Right, because you didn't write anything, you didn't write the letters, right? The letters came from themselves because you basically press around them. But in a case of where you go ahead and you bang out the letters or you chisel in there, then that would be sufficient. That is called writing. So if it's yerichos, that is considered to be writing. But if it's around the letter, where just the letter appears to protrude because you banged everything else around it, that doesn't work. And you can't bang around to go ahead and let it work. we're talking about the tzitz. Was written Kodesh Hashem. So over there, they wouldn't write on it. Rather, it would protrude like a coin. And how do you press a coin? You got a coin, and then you push down on it, and there's spaces where it doesn't push down. So basically, it push down's the side, and the thing that's sticking up is basically the part that wasn't pressed down. So therefore, it protrudes on its own. So you have that by the tzitz. Right? Because those are made like dinarei zav. So over there, the tzitz also has a requirement. You have to write Kodesh LaHashem. So over there is a requirement of writing, and yet the tzitz is good. And over here you're saying, because even though you pushed around it, but by us, by Gittin, you can't push around it. So the Gemara answers, it's like dinarei zav and not like dinarei zav. Kedina is of the bullet. It's like the dinner is of that sticks out. Like the is of the ilu hasam teichas over there by the dinner is of those are actually pressed around it protrudes. And hacha yerechas, but over here we'll say that the tzitz basically they dented it out to actually make the letters. They carved out the letter. So Ravina Rav Ashi. So Rushma Michre Charetz Kenufe Machnif. When you go ahead and you press down, does it also press the letters that are still remaining protruding, or does it completely not touch any of that part? So it says over there that it does go ahead and just the push down the surrounding areas, but it doesn't go ahead and touch letters at all. But we have another brisa, right, that says that they wouldn't go ahead and they wouldn't push that part down, rather it would stick on its own. And if you'd say that it's michras charetz, in other words, that it didn't touch around, so there is no michtav there, there is no writing there. You can't push completely around the tzitz. Right, you can't push around the tzitz to let the letters appear to protrude, and therefore there's the lack of ksiva. So you can't say that it's different than the dinarei zav, because over here we see that that's how it was made. So the answer is kedinarei zav, kedinarei zav, kedinarei zav the bullet. Yes, it is sticking up. Kedinarei zav the ilu hasa megavai v'hacha mehavrai. Over there on the outside, right, when it comes to a coin, they would push on the outside, which would make the appearance of the coin stick up. But when it comes to the tzitz, they go on the back side. In other words, they would push out they would bank from the back, knock out the letters Kodesh LaHashem, so then the letters would protrude. So yes, they both were protruding, but when it comes to coins, they protrude because you press down next to the letters, and when it comes to the tzitz, you push down from behind it. So therefore, it comes out that there's two ways to do it. You want to go ahead and etch into something that works according to a get, or you actually push the letters, from behind, and that also is considered to be a ksav. The only thing that's not considered to be a ksav is if you press everything around it, and then it appears that the letter was coming up protruding, but it never protruded because you just pushed everything else around it on the side.
Like coin.
Right, that's what we're talking about. Right, the dinner is up. So Baiminei Rav Nachman Kosela get al tashel zav. He writes her a get on a golden tablet. V'amarla he's kabli gitech he's kabli ksuvasech. Here, accept your get. And the ksuva says I owe you $200, and keep this golden get, which is basically worth $200. So here's your get, and here's your ksuba, and have a nice life. Mahu, what is halacha there? Summer late, because maybe you could say that, right? That maybe the get, since he had a write on it, it's not hers, it's his. Excuse me, it's not his, it's hers. It's her gold tablet. So therefore, maybe it's not a good payment. Samarlei niskabla, it's considered niskabla gita and niskabla ksubasa. It's considered like she got her get and she got her ksuba. So eisvei niskabla gitech v'hashar ksubasech. So he says, here's your get, and the gold. So he gives her, let's say, a golden tablet, and not the letters itself that are written, because that he has to go ahead and get over, but all the edges, right? There were wide edges that were also gold. The wide edges, the shar, the remainder of the golden material I'm giving to you should be for ksuba. So it's considered as kabagita v'ashalik ksubasa. So over there we say that she got her get, and the remainder of the sides is her ksuba. So tamadi gashar. It only sounds like only because there's extra material that nothing's written on it, that is qualifies as her ksuba. But the area where the letters are written on, that is not considered to be paying for a ksuba. Like a shar low. It sounds like it wouldn't be. So the says no. Even if there's no other areas, right? It's just the get itself. There's no extra. Nevertheless, that's considered to be paying for the ksuba. That there is other areas. That if he would say the extra is your ksuba, then it would work as a ksuba. But if he just gives it to her without saying that the extra material over here is your ksuba, then it's basically considered like he just gave her an expensive get, and he still has to go ahead and pay her ksuba. So my timer. So Avira also, because we just say it's basically part of the space of the Megillah or of this document. So Tana Rabbanan Harei Zagitech V'Haniyar Shali. Husband says, "Here is your get, but the paper itself is mine." Eina Megareshes. It's not. He's not considered a divorce because he has to give to her.
Ink?
Well, he's giving her that which is written on it. It's that which is written on it. It's not something which is, we basically said he can give her something which is valueless as the get, right? We said something which is, let's say something Isser Hana, you can still give her as the get, and it works. So maybe something of value you don't need to give over. So there, I'm not giving you any of value. I'm just giving you what's written on here, but the item itself is mine. Doesn't work.
She's telling her you have to return it.
Not return it, but it's mine.
She has to scrape off the letters.
It's mine. Just know whatever. I mean, yeah. It's not like he's giving it to her, then you have to give it back to me. It's mine the whole time, right? Almanash, but he says, I'm giving it to you. You are acquiring it. But you're acquiring it, almanah, you give it back to me, like you do this by lulav or whatever it is, right? So he says, almanash, so that works because he has to be giving her something. He gives her something, doesn't matter if it's value or not, but it has to be him to her. So since she has it, then if he demands that she returns it, she's also do it. The strings attached. So it's a question about matana manas lahachzir. Over here, it is havi matana is considered to be it is something he's giving from him to her. And Rav Papa bein shita l'shita bein teva l'teva mai. What about the area between the lines or between the letters? Right, he wants to keep that mai. So take it. The Gemara does not give a teretz. The safer. So if you go ahead and you say the husband retains everything between all the letters and all the lines, so then basically what he's giving her is basically a couple hundred, letters, to her, but they're all separated. So this is safer. It can't be multiple svarim. So one says, no, lo tzricha de ma'ira. Over here, we're talking about they're connected. They're still, they're connected around. So even if he retains the space in between, right, everything that which he's giving her is still considered to be a safer, still considered connected. And let's say everyone knew that this one eved belonged to the husband. The get ksav al yado, and then the get was written on his arm. And all of a sudden, right, the eved is found by her. Mahu, what do we say? Do we say that, she's saying you divorced me? He's like, I never gave you anything. She's like, you gave me the eved. He's like, yeah, I wrote on the eved's arm, but I never gave it to you. But he's in my house. He's in my room. He's in my yard. He's by me. I know we separated. He's in my house. So do we say that he was makna the eved to her? Or maybe the eved just one morning took a morning stroll, went to her house, went to, pick some apples in the back. And she says, you gave me a get because it was written on his arm. So why don't you say over here, hey, I got a kasha. So we know before that you can only use a document, right? That is, you can only use a document that you can't forge. So if you write in someone's arm, go get some soap, right? And you can wash it off and, you change it up. So if you write an eved, it's something that you can.
Yeah, too, dude.
All right, so let's see. If that's the case, if that's the case, look at the question on Mishnah, Yachal Eved. It says Yachal Eved. So Maybe you can say by the Mishnah, where if it's written on the Eved, but that's not the biggest part, because as long as you have Eidim Masira, you have witnesses who people who witnessed that there was a get given over him to her, that's sufficient. The Rabbi Elazar here is going to Rabbi Elazar who holds a Masira Karti. El Rabbi Chama, but Rabbi Chama says Edik Siva Kasha. Rabbi Chama Nami Loi Kasha. He said no, it's not a Kasha. The Ksuba is Kaka, right? And we're talking about a tattoo. It was tattooed to his arm. And Hashdas Lahachi Masnisa Nami Latisha Ksuba is the Kaka. So you say over here, no, we're talking about something which cannot be forged because it was tattooed on. So therefore, it's not a Kasha. In our case, it's not a Kasha. In the Mishnah, we'll say if something's written on the Evid, it's referring to when it was tattooed on and it cannot be forged. So no, my Haviola. So okay, what's the Lachlamais? This is the Lashma. Damreish Lakish. Ha Nodoris Ein Lahem Chazaka. Movable objects such as animals, right, do not create a chazaka. In other words, if just because an animal is located in my yard, you can't say it's my animal because animals tend to roam. So too, an eved can move around. Therefore, his being in her yard does not show that he gave her the eved. That's not a chazaka. That is not sufficient proof. So let's say like this. Let's say there was a tablet that was known to be hers. So now tablets don't move on their own. It was known to be hers. They get kasuv alel, and the get was written on it. And it's his possession. Mahu. What do we say there? Do we say that she was makna over to him in order for him to write the get, right? To give to her. Now remember, if he writes something on her property that it wasn't his,
without her permission.
Let's just say, let's say it was something her property, right? She doesn't give it to him. Let's say it was her property, and he writes in her property. That doesn't work,
right?
Because it's law. He has to give from him to her, right? No. So we know this object is hers. Well, she has to provide it,
right?
So by her providing, she has to pay for it,
right?
So by her pay for it, she can give her something that she owns, or she can pay the sofer. Here's the $100. Now, do we say that in this case that she was macking it to him, so therefore he owned it and he could write the get and then use it to give it to her? Right. Or do we say that I never gave it to you, so you can't give me this get because you wrote something on mine and this was never yours? Or maybe she doesn't really macking it. We also testified. This is referring to Rabbi Yehuda ben Bala, right? In Mesachas Edya. So he also said over there, there's a certain zakin. I used to go ahead and loan all the village people and he would go ahead and basically sell them fields, right? But in order to buy a field, so you have to have a document come from you, right? You have to have a document come from you in order to buy the field, right? So he would provide, right? He would provide the documents. But he would have to be makna over to them in order to go ahead and purchase it. Because of the other and the Chamim were machshir all these cases. Over there, it has to come. It can't be his document. It has to be their documents. The old man, the Zaken Echad, was makna over the shtaros. Here, you can have this piece of paper. You own it, right? Now, write me the shtar. I'll purchase the land, and therefore he was able to basically go ahead and buy all the land. So just like over there, he was able to makna. So to over here, you'd say that she was makna to him. Samaravo, my kusha. So how can you say over there? So Dilma Zaken, maybe a Zaken. Shani, right, top of the page of Chafal Aleph. So maybe a zakin is different because he knows over there to be makam. Maybe a woman doesn't know the basic halachas of gerushin, and therefore she doesn't know to makna over this, and he just wrote on something in her possession. Salamarava, a couple more lines. Salamarava bihach. Let's learn from here. If a cosigner, a guarantor signs after the signatures, all right, of after the signatures on the document, then it is effective, and the person, the creditor, if he didn't get paid by the borrower, then he can go ahead back to the guarantor. He can even go ahead. He can go ahead and collect because that doesn't have a shame. If he just guaranteed, other people might not know, but at least his open lands. So Gemara says, so over there in that case, in order to collect from an Arev, the Arev has to acquire the document in order to sign his name and then to give to the creditor. So over there, how does he acquire it? It was other people signed it. It must be that they were mocking it to him. So my kusha, maybe a man knows the difference. Learn from here. Isha, when it comes to a woman, kaiseva says gita, vaish kaisev shaibro. that a woman can go ahead and write and have the get written. In other words, a woman knows that the get has to come from him to her, but she can go ahead and write it and then be mocking it over. So you see over here clearly that a woman is she knows to be mocking over the get to him. And the husband writes the receipt because that protects him, so he pays for that. Because the kim is on the chaysam, but we see that the woman is well aware of the halachas of gittin, and therefore she would be mocking over. And therefore, in our case, if he has the tabla by him, we could say that she was mocking it over to him. All right, we'll stop here. Everyone have a wonderful day, and let the Shem will continue tomorrow.